that maybe they'll be out in the streets, and we're not going to be as kind as they were over in Jolly Old. Of course, the intelligence agencies over there allowed certain businesses to be attacked. You didn't see the cops ringing the properties that they were going after, no. But this is part and parcel in the contention of many out there that they're going to wait till you get desperate enough that you're going to want to strike out or burn down a building or whatever, and then they bring in the martial law, and then at that point in time, the government can go through their list of people that they want to see disappear for a while, if not forever. There's troublemakers out here because we're talking about Constitution, we're talking about law, we're talking about real issues concerning real people, and these people don't give a damn.
Well, I'm just going to be curious to see what's going to happen with this Tea Party Day on the 15th.
We'll see.
That's going to be real interesting to find out how many people are going to be participating in that. Also, would I be wrong to say that the reason why we're having our financial difficulties is because we allowed finance to take precedence over production?
And the answer is yes. And it's part of the scheme which has been put together to destroy the economy, and that is to do away with manufacturing via free trade, globalization, offshoring, and outsourcing, allowing corporations to keep their gains, their profits offshore and not be taxed. And the people in power knew that that program was going into being in the 1980s, and today it's manifest. We're out 6.7 million jobs. And incidentally, that figure is going to get to 14 million before this is over, and probably over the next 2.5 years. And the upshot of the whole thing is that they have deliberately brought this about, and they knew that they had to go into the financial end in order to make money. And that's when Fred said earlier in the program they switched over in 1980. They did, but for reasons other than what he thought.
All right, we'll take the break. Hey, thanks for your call. By the way, what kind of phone do you have?
It's a speakerphone. I should have been on the other end.
Yes, you should have been. All right. Alan Greenspan, Fed Reserve Chairman, in 1988, in a speech to the Economic Club of New York, he says, "I guess I should warn you. If I turn out to be particularly clear, you've probably misunderstood what I've said." And remember, folks, back in 1987, first time he was up in front of the Banking Committee in Washington, D.C., he was already pitching to allow the investment banks to, we need to relax these rules and allow these banks to make more money. Yes, Alan Greenspan, the dog-faced boy. Let's go back to the phones here, gentlemen. Tell you what, Robbie, I'm sorry, we're at the bottom of the second hour here. You've got the Bob Chapman deal of the day.
Yeah, British sovereigns, brilliant, uncirculated. Haven't seen them available for a while, but they're available. Maybe because nobody's got any money to buy stuff because they've got to pay the tax man next week. But British sovereigns, brilliant, uncirculated, are now available, $250 a piece. Order 20 or more and receive a free subscription to the International Forecast and a fine ceramic mug from Republic Broadcasting.
And it is a fine. I've had so many compliments on that.
Yes.
I actually found the guy's number the other day that actually designed that logo. I want him to do some other things.
Yeah, well,
he's got a barbecue business someplace. I'll have to.
We can do mug 2.0 next. Let me ask Bob a question, just because these numbers are more reliable than the numbers coming from the IMF. IMF is set to release its report on April the 21st, where it says that the toxic assets held by the banks is somewhere south of $4 trillion.
Well, I think you can use a figure of 5%. And if it's 1.25 quadrillion, you can multiply that by 5. And what do we come up with, Robbie?
You asking me a math question when you use the term quadrillion? I don't.
We're talking about $6,250,000,000. And how much did they say?
Their report is going to say it's $4 trillion.
Well, they're only 1/3 wrong. That's not too bad.
Now, bear in
But,
mind,
5% is a very, very conservative figure. I mean, it could be much higher than that. I mean, look at the money that went and was funneled through AIG, who was running naked, incidentally, on the derivatives that they had written. And that money all went out to $101 billion, went out to, and I have a list in tomorrow's IF of the countries and how much they got. I have the banks, but I didn't list them all. And that money was to pay off the losses that they took because AIG reneged, essentially. I mean, it's colossal what's going on. It shouldn't be allowed. The banks, AIG, GE, GM, they all should be allowed to go under. And that includes Goldman Sachs and J.P. Morgan Chase. They are bankrupt.
Yeah. Well, Simon Jenkins thinks like you do, Bob.
Who is he?
Well, he's the chief economist for the IMF.
Oh, I thought he was the head of the prison in Pennsylvania.
No, but he basically, he said if you took the name United States off the balance sheet and you presented the facts and figures to the IMF without them knowing what country you were talking about, they would immediately suggest nationalizing of all banks, breaking them up, selling off the good parts, bankrupting the bad parts, and basically doing what the IMF does when it goes into a third world country.
Exactly. And they can't do that because they have to time the hyperinflationary collapse into deflation with their third world war so that they can bring everybody in the world to their knees and say the only solution is world regulation, world currency, world government,
world
and
control.
That's what they're after.
World control.
This is a game that we're playing here, and people got to understand that there's a third dimension to this, and that's what all these other newsletter writers miss, with the exception of a handful. They don't get it, and they'll never be able to come up with the proper prognostications on what's going to happen because they have lost the missing link.
You know, let's take another call here. John in Ohio. Hello, John.
You've got a great panel. How are you, John?
Hi.
You just tripped my mind, and basically the gamesmanship that Bob was just talking about up in the rarefied air of the IMF. Bob, is it in essence that they're going to break down what is known as nation states, the techno-oligarchs? Are they essentially, they've got a list of cards in their deck that they're playing socially, and when we get to the end game, it becomes a social aristocracy of some kind? And the second question, I actually got three. You tripped the question there. If you could address that, is there a social? There's obviously a social component in that so much of what we're influenced by has been influenced by foundations over the last 80
you're right.
years,
The social component is what they want in the final analysis. They want to control what people do from before they're born until they die, including euthanasia, where they're going to go to school, what jobs they're going to have, who's going to be allowed to breed, who's going to work where and in what field, and on and on. These people are insane. I mean, this is nothing new. This goes back for centuries. I mean, look at eugenics. It had its real birth in modern times during the early 1800s, here in the United States as well as in Great Britain. But, yes, it's social. And they have a drop-back plan, which is sort of like balkanization. This is why the only way you can solve the problem is by getting rid of them.
Go ahead, John.
we're getting up into rarefied air where nothing makes any sense, and good is bad and bad is good. So essentially, we're getting into that area where it's very, very rarefied in a kind of a gamesmanship way. If we talk literally about what's real and what's not, but so there's a whole deck of institutional knowledge that we should have basically to understand this. Now, my second question, which we gain a lot of by the current events of what's going on now and has been going on. John, you mentioned the Wizard of Oz, and that had struck me about a month ago as it being very an illuminist kind of thing. Do you know who was responsible for writing it?